I'd love to call the meeting to order at 7:07. Thank you for your patience, and technology is wonderful and challenging. So I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast-Shin-Shan-Snalyak speaking people. And I would also like to share that my commitment to truth and reconciliation is to take advantage of all of the amazing opportunities that I'm grateful to be offered through our district, as well as through the land that we live on, to continue my learning of Indigenous ways. Thank you. Adoption of agenda. Thank you, Trustee Ross, Trustee Horn.
Add one item.
Oh, sorry. Before we do that, in addition to the agenda, perhaps
9.2.
9.2. Wonderful.
So moved as amended.
Wonderful, thank you. And that is forensic audit. And moved as amended, seconder Trustee Horn, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Approved. And presentation, I will hand this over to Mr. Samwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my pleasure to introduce Mike McDowell from Prince Rupert Middle School, along with, if I see him, or perhaps he's not there, Jonathan Pinkasic from Pacific Coast School, as they present on the Stream to Sea program. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Andrew. Hopefully you guys can all hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up or something like that. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm very honored to present to the school board today about the Stream to Sea program that's been part of School District 52 for well over 30 years, maybe 35 years. I've made a quick video, and I think hopefully Cam has access to it. I put it in the chat. That will kind of give you an outline roughly of some of the activities that we do. And then afterwards, I'll speak a little more. I also have John Pinkasic with me, who's from PCS. They actually just received a tank this year and are new to the program. So he's more than willing to share a few of his thoughts about some of the activities they're doing and how his students are actually enjoying the program as well. So I'll let you watch the movie first.
I will try to get that up here in a second. We want sound. Should there be sound?
There should be sound on the video though.
Can you go back to the screen share? Yeah. Where you, and then click at the bottom of the screen, there should be a little checkbox. Include sound.
Audio.
Yeah, yeah. Include audio.
For students to learn about salmon, including fish dissections. Each year, multiple coho salmon are harvested by the Prince Rupert Salmon Enhancement Society, destined for schools in Prince Rupert. This school year, we had a class from PRMS who were actually on site at the golf course to watch a live egg take. Through the Stream to Sea program, students also have the chance to use their hands to manually fertilize the eggs in schools. Once the eggs are fertilized, they are placed into the tanks. At this point, over the next several months, students will observe the eggs and the changes that take place, including hatching of the eggs into alevin and development into fry. Throughout the school year, the Stream to Sea program also allows other opportunities for students to learn about salmon, including fish dissections. Students really seem to enjoy the moments where they can actually pick up different anatomy parts of a salmon, touch and feel them, and also compare them to their own body systems. Another popular activity through the Stream to Sea program is the creation of fish prints. Fish prints are a fun and popular art activity, which again allows students to touch and feel salmon and at the same time create a memento to take home. Another popular place-based learning activity through the Stream to Sea program is the storm drain marking project, where students are encouraged to go out around the school neighborhood and paint salmon around storm drains, getting them to think about the connections between their community and the ocean. Another popular place-based learning activity within the Stream to Sea program is the stream assessment activity. The stream assessment activity is an activity that allows students to actually get out into the field and allow them to use their own eyes and ears to judge whether a particular stream is a healthy habitat for salmon. This is an example of an ADST activity through the Stream to Sea program. This activity had students design their own fish weirs using some of the materials they would find out in nature, such as rock and wood. Another obvious connection to the Stream to Sea program is Indigenous education. In the past, we have had elders come into the class to share adaos with students, and just this past June, we had a traditional salmon roast at Roosevelt. Finally, around the end of April, when the salmon are fully grown to their fry stage, students again leave the classroom, come down to Oldfield Creek Hatchery, and release the fry into the creek. Through this process, students help continue the cycle of salmon coming and going onto the traditional territories of the Tsimshian people, as it has been through time immemorial.
These are things that every kid needs to learn. You know, where
Thanks,
they're-
Sam. Cam.
so-
Hopefully you guys can hear me again.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, as you can see, there's a huge plethora of different activities that are available for educators to, take part and kind of help teach them, the students, about salmon as a kind of a keystone species here in our own little happy part of the world. All the different activities are available online in French and in English. And yeah, I think at the moment we have tanks in every one of our schools. Usually in every school, I think there's about one or two classes that partake in this type of stuff as well. So definitely a popular one, easy to go. And I think the big thing I've learned over my years practicing it, which is probably over 10 years now, I think I've been part of the program, is that it's just valuable to have that opportunity to get kids outside moving and just get them out in the community. It's invaluable. So I'm going to let John talk about his experience at the moment, starting this year with PCS having a tank.
Yeah, hi. Can you all hear me? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so this year we just got our tank, and it was kind of almost a surprise because I didn't even really know if it was going to happen. But basically, for the past few years at PCS, like, my students have pretty much been bugging me about it. They keep asking, like, oh, they remember it. They had the tank in elementary, and when are we going to get them? So I think the biggest benefit, a lot of the things in the video were new to me, actually, the ADST. So I haven't actually really delved into everything that I can do with it. But the biggest thing that I've seen is just the interest in my students. So, from getting the tank, they're always coming in, they're looking in, even though it's just eggs right now, and they're teenagers too, right? Not even children. We almost had a little stampede when I took students to McClymont to actually get rocks, because I could only take a few students. So anything like that is the most important thing for me, in my view. So yeah, lots of, sorry. Oh, I thought, anyways. One of the big, yeah, so another thing I did manage to do, so we did an activity with, it's called ATU, Accumulated Thermal Units. And I actually got some students who really normally don't participate that much to actually do an activity, you know, that we did basically like STEM algebra. So that's actually a huge thing. And then we also had really good support from the hatchery on this. So Brandy actually came by today. She's the manager at the hatchery, and we did a salmon dissection. And same thing, you know, we had a lot of really good engagement. Everyone wanted to touch the salmon, they wanted to hold the pieces, they wanted to have a chance to actually like join the dissection and like cut a little piece of the salmon and like all sorts of things. And then the final thing that I want to say is that there are clearly a lot of connections to Indigenous learning. And this kind of like watching that video kind of reminded me of something in the upcoming ADST finesse manual, which I don't know if it's going to be included, but they were talking about making salmon leather. And that just kind of like, again, like it's so nice when you have that connection to the actual thing that's taken out of the textbook. So that's my thoughts. I'm very enthusiastic about the program, as you can see. I think it's great. I'm really happy to participate in it.
Thank you.
Do any of the trustees have any questions at all?
I have a comment. I'm just kind of curious why, if you're going to have it both in French and English, why you're not bringing it into Semitic language as well, and maybe working with ABED to, you know, to convert it to that, so that traditional teachings and with the Aboriginal elders that could probably help assist in this, that it could be shared, like, because as we look at our food source and or the main, you know, supply chain out there now, we're being disrupted all over the world. So I think that we need to be putting our focus back on to what we grow in our own communities. So I'd like to see if you shared that with Roberta at all, to maybe have it in Semitic language.
No, I think we'd definitely be open to any type of activity for sure. I know in previous years, my own personal one, working with Lorraine Green over some of the years, she would come in and kind of talk about some of the different salmon species and some of the traditional names used. So by all means, that would be something that we would definitely look forward partnering with ABED and WAPSIG getting on that one as well.
Yeah, and for my part, actually, so we have Ben Spencer coming in every Wednesday. So that's, you know, we've talked about it. Like I said, we just that's something that you know, we can connect with that as well.
So I'd like to say on John's last point that it's excellent that you guys have managed to incorporate the native culture into the program that you're doing with the fish. So that's excellent. And the fact that we have such a good resource here locally and allows our students to go and do that. So I think that's really good of you guys to do that and put yourselves out there doing that. Thank you for that.
Christine.
Yeah. Trustee Meyer?
I just wanted to comment, both of my girls, one went through the Stream to Sky Sea program with Mr. McDowell, and it was one of her favorite things. And she learned a lot. It was hands-on learning. She wanted to go to school. It was just fantastic. And my youngest is just getting a touch of it now. She was part of the oh goodness, in June when they did the bonfire and cooked the salmon. She was a part of that, and she came running home. And I said, how was your day? And she goes, I like salmon, just not the way you cook it, Mom. I like it the way Roosevelt cooks it. And so, yeah, so apparently I have to update my cooking skills. And she also got to do the salmon dissection on Monday, which she was not a fan on. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get her to eat salmon ever again, but I'm guessing I just need more cooking lessons. But the program is fantastic. And thank you. Thank you for running it in the schools, because it is fantastic.
Thank you. And I would just love to share, Mike, I know you do a lot of volunteer work and with the hatchery, and we would always go down to fish release forever. And so thank you for that, adding that to our community, and also for bringing this into the schools. And we have at least three fish body paintings in our house from all the kids that have gone through it, and absolutely loved it. And how cool to see from egg to in, tanks in the hallway, and then all the way to release. Really cool. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I can speak to from all the volunteers at the hatchery. You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. It's been pretty good. And I even got John to start volunteering too. He's starting to come out the last few years. So I think we have another volunteer. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time tonight to share this with us. Beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. So approval of the minutes of the open board meeting. Trustee Last, Trustee Beal, all in favor? Moved. Thank you. And the necessity of the closed meeting that we, do we say recess? Necessity of the closed meeting?
Just 4.1 through 4.9.
Great, thank you. 4.1 through 4.9.
I'll
Trustee
second
Last,
that.
Trustee Beal, all in favor?
All right.
Great. Moved. Correspondence.
I just wanted to see here, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file, but on block, and I'm just seeing which ones would be applicable.
The first two are actually addressed to the board.
Yes.
The rest
I
are
see
just
that.
CC'd to the board.
I'll withdraw that motion until because there's two.
I'll make a motion for the first letter 511 to receive and file, please.
Second, Trustee Last, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, this is attention to education chairs to say that the government is putting the Excellence of Education Award. We have such good educators within our system and here within School District 52. And it would be excellent if people could take the foresight to nominate people for these awards. I think that would be really good. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just share, I have nominated in the past before I was in this position, and there is some legwork and letters of support that you need to get. So I would say to give yourself a good amount of time to gather what's needed. And we had a seconder to that?
Yes.
Wonderful. All in favor, receive and file?
No. Cool.
5.1.2, wishes of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file.
Seconded to that motion, Trustee Last, would you like to speak to that letter?
Not at this time, I don't think. I don't see much change in the contents of this letter from what was previously done. So, I feel that I might not want to share what I'm feeling.
Right. Thank you. Trustee Meyer?
Yeah, I actually had a question on the same thing as Janet was just saying. And Cam, I'm guessing this would be more directed to you. Does this change things for us in the way that we do our programming?
Well, we don't know yet exactly what their plans are going to be. So we received this letter because we have two contracts with MCFD that we provide service related to these services. Based on what we understand, The Northwest is going to see something happening in 2023, so it's a little ways away yet, and we don't know yet what that will look like.
And I can share that.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
And what I can share is this looks like removing direct supports to family of children on the spectrum, who are on the autism spectrum, and using that funding to go towards the hub. So that might, so where you once had direct services and your own service worker, that will shift, which I don't know if that will then shift.
So on the receive and file part, is it too soon to advocate that they don't necessarily change that? I just worry that we know the tragedy that happened in our community because of lack of support for Angie and Robert. And I hope that that never ever happens again. So the little bit I've heard on this shift is negative. So even though it doesn't affect us directly, it affects our kids. So like it's not a school district thing, but it does have a direct influence on our kids. So should we be doing something proactive now? I don't know. It's a
I know
question.
that the reason why I didn't want to belabor this is because I've already investigated this. This is an announcement. This is what they've actually written pretty much in stone. This is new. This is a sort of a transfer from current practices to the new practice, which means that there's going to be a lot of money that was allocated to specific mental illness or physical illness or anything. Something like autism is going to go into a pot. It's going to be divvied among whatever. And whatever means is they're not giving us a whatever yet, but this is their plans and it's already pretty much set in stone. So no, I don't know that for sure, but what I've heard through people who have children with autism, they sort of been apprised of this, right? So I don't want to talk to it because like right now, I mean, you're right, maybe we should be advocating, maybe we should be saying that maybe we should write a letter, maybe we should bring it back rather than receive and file it. We write a letter to the ministry for further detail, more detail on what their plan is and how far an implementation it's at. Maybe that's what we should be doing. So I'll withdraw that receive file, make motion to write a letter. Can I get a second? Oh, trustee Lance. You heard what I said, McCann, right?
And I have trustee Meyer and then myself.
Yeah, I think writing a letter, I mean, they probably won't do a clarification until something's announced, but maybe to write a letter to say, hey, you know, our funding can't diminish. The funding has to be kept in place, or more funding really is what is needed for these children, and supports just can't disappear. And so maybe a letter, instead of asking for clarification, is just us essentially saying, you know, support has to stay.
Yeah, but just clarification and how far are they at the implementation stages of this new process is what I want to know. How far, like they got to tell us how far along they are, right? I mean, we need to know that so we can.
Or a little.
I think this is something that should go to our PCSTA for the meeting next month.
And I would also add as well that I would love to see added into the letter is just how hard it is to staff, to find staff, and that if we're looking at staffing a whole hub in our community, and we don't even know if it will be in our community or if families are having to travel to Terrace, and that's the Northwest hub. There's a lot of gray. Yeah. Trustee Ross?
And just to follow up on that, we know from Angie and Robert that she had reached the absolute desperation in trying to find respite, resources, and Terrace isn't close enough. You know, if you have someone at that point, Terrace it might as well be in Nova Scotia. It's just going to be too far. And to have that happen in our community, we never want to forget it. And if we can prevent going back to situations where there just isn't enough resources for parents who are raising children with special needs. We don't want Angie and Robert to be in vain. If anything, we should always be holding their faces as the face of what happens when you don't have enough resources. So yeah, if now's the time to start that advocacy, let's do it.
So we have a motion on the table, we have a seconder. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Copy to the board, 5.2.1.
I'll make a motion that we in block 5.21.1, 5.2.12, receive and file.
Seconded, trustee Ross. All in favor? Great. Would you like to speak to that
No,
motion?
that's fine, Madam Chair.
All in favor? Great. So 5.2.2, wishes of the board. Trustee Last,
Receive and file, please.
a seconder to that motion. Trustee Meyer, would anyone like to speak to that? Okay, all in favor? Passed. Thank you. 5.2.3.
Receive and file, please.
Thank you.
Are you
Seconder.
doing it block?
Receive and file 5231 and 5232, please.
Seconded trustee Horn. Would anyone like to speak to that motion? All in favor? Pass. 5.2.4. Trustee Horn,
Receive and file, please.
seconded to that motion. Trustee Last, would you like to speak to that?
No.
All in favor? Passed. Thank you. 5.2.5. Trustee Horn?
Receive and file, please.
Seconder to that motion? I would like,
You can still speak to it.
Can I speak to that?
Oh,
You can speak against the motion. if that's
Okay, great. I would like to write a letter of support for this. This is just to have my understanding, options for people to attend the trustee academy for BCSTA virtually. And we did it last year. It worked very well, and it was an option for people in rural or not able to travel due to COVID. And so that
Okay,
is my
you can't-
speaking
you
against the
can't
motion.
Pretty much like we're doing here, but I can withdraw my motion.
I'll make the motion that we write a letter of concern that people who are unable to attend in person should have the option to attend via Zoom or Team or.
Would anyone else like to speak to that motion?
No, I would like to speak to it because I totally agree that I am going to it this year. I was opposed to going to it at first, and then we haven't been to one for a while. And last year the Zoom was absolutely wonderful, but because I found out we don't have Zoom, I decided to go. And before making that decision, I did call BCSTA. I got a whole lay of the land because I know we're in the midst of COVID, and I want to be safe for my family and the people I work with and my colleagues around here. But I said, well, why was there no option for Zoom? And they said, oh, no, I mean, we should be attending in person, and that's all they gave me. And so I was a little bit put off by that because I think that we're doing Zoom here tonight, even though the board's here, we still have people on Zoom, right, that's participating.
And board members. Yep.
So I'm thinking like, why couldn't we? So I totally agree with you, Kate.
All in favor? Approved. Thanks. 5.2.6, wishes of the board. Trustee Meyer?
Yeah, can I make a motion? Am I allowed to block motion if it's not under the same? So can I make a motion for 526, 527, and 528 to receive and file?
You have a second to that, trustee Coombs?
So you can just ask if they have anything to speak to any of these motions.
Do you have
Any of these,
anything to speak to any of these motions?
any of them.
It just, these three letters that were written, we voted for again, already for support for BCSTA at our AGM.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And 5.2.9.
Receiving file, please.
Thank you. Seconder to that, trustee Coons. Would anyone like to speak to that motion? All in favor? Approved. Thanks. Superintendent of Schools report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 6.1.1 is field trips. Quite a few field trips. And I just want to say, you'll notice on the photocopies that are included in the package that some of them were denied, some of them were put on hold. The COVID pandemic is creating this problem where the rules are changing so quickly that, there's a difference between a field trip where they're going outdoors and a field trip where they might be inside, say for volleyball. And so not only did we have to check the rules that are here in our Prince Rupert area, but also we're checking what's in Smithers, what's in Terrace, because it does have an effect on the field trip. So you will see it looks like YC crossed it out and then he approved it, then he didn't approve it. Almost every one of these, if COVID precautions were changing, I wrote, for approval, follow COVID precautions. And that's the discussion of what's not only going on here, but what's going to the location that you're traveling to. If there's no question, 6.1.2, enrollment. For enrollment, Madam Chair, I turn to Sandra Pond to address this.
Thank you. So our enrollment, as we know, our September 30th numbers, often we are taking students off of our lists because if we have not seen them. And so our numbers were low. I think I reported they were at about 1830. I think when the dust settled, we were maybe 1833 with the something.
Yeah, the FTE was lower than that.
Then the FTE was a little bit lower. We're currently, when you look at our MyEd and our numbers in our schools, we're at 1848. And so some of those students who had not yet arrived have, plus we've had 5 students move out of the district. So that's a good sign that we've had quite a number of students coming back. So we're at 1848 currently. There's always stories there.
Mm-hmm. Questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. 6.1.3, research request. On this one, staff from UBC, from the Stigma and Resilience Among Vulnerable Youth Center. They've received a grant from Public Health Agency of Canada, and they're interested in speaking to LGBTQ students at the high school level. And what it is they would ask them to volunteer to participate in a series of online interviews. In total, there's 3 15-minute online secure online interview surveys. And in return, there's a remuneration of $15 for the first one, the second one, and $20 for the last one. And basically, the research is about healthy relationships and violence and dating violence in particular, and healthy relationships. And so they're collecting this information, and then as a follow-up, they will be offering professional development in helping students to see relationships in a light that makes them positive and avoid some of the problems.
Where is this coming from?
It's University of British Columbia.
But what?
The Stigma and Resilience Among Vulnerable Youth Center.
Okay, just wanted to sort of get that.
So you need a motion?
Yes, I call for motion.
So moved, please.
Well, seconded to that motion.
I'll second that.
Thanks, trustee Beal. Anyone like to speak to that motion?
Just, in previous surveys and whatnot, we asked if the board will be given the opportunity to see the results of the survey and just maybe where we could support our vulnerable students more than we maybe are as a result of the information that comes out of the survey.
Right, Madam Chair, trustee Last, they can't give us the information for our specific, location, but they will share the results BC wide.
So we can't get a blanket even for the Northwest region?
That I don't know if it's broken down like that, but that was a question about specific schools or areas, and they said no, they can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be more helpful to see just what our kids are perhaps dealing with, but any information on how to help that sector of the population is advantageous.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. COVID update. As you know, the COVID updates are now under a different category. They're under the Communicable Diseases Act. And so we continue with the deep cleaning at the elementary schools with additional time for custodians. Maintenance staff have indicated that they've done another order of masks to get us clear through the spring break. There was one COVID exposure, which was at Roosevelt Elementary, and that was October 21st and 22nd, and October 25th to 28th. And this is cold and flu season. And of course, it is timely to remind parents, staff, and the community of the importance of following the pandemic safety protocols. Please continue with daily health checks, hand washing, and certainly the sage advice of stay at home if you're not feeling well, and call Northern Health. And 6.1.5, strategic plan. We continue to work, as the board knows. We've been working with the board on the board's welcoming message for the strategic plan, and we're looking forward to receiving that soon. And of course, we extend our hand to help with that. I know it's very tough to write some of these things because there's so much you could put in, but we've only given you one page. The Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, this is the large committee where there's representatives from PRDTU, from IOUE, from Indigenous Ed Council, Principals Association. That meeting will be held December 7th at 5:30 p.m. and we will provide food and drink on that.
This is when?
December 7th. It's getting hard to find a date because everybody's, yeah, everything is so booked. But we know that we want to get this out to the public, and it also is forming the work that we're doing with principals. And that's sort of the next part of this, which is I continue to meet with the principals to go over the school improvement plans. And of course, the school improvement plans are to integrate with the strategic plan. And of course, it's very difficult because we have a draft for them, but as you know, we're modifying it and trying to get it just where we need it to be. And so I am meeting with principals and saying, okay, you sort of have a rough draft, but I know this might change, but the basic principles are there. And so those meetings will continue. So I look forward to that meeting to move it forward, the strategic plan. In addition to the strategic plan, we will be moving sort of into the phase 2, which is to include the operational plan. We've also looked at other plans, and we see that they have an HR plan, which we think would be important given some of the information we have. And then of course the financial plan that ties a lot of the activities that you're doing, it's tied to a specific financial area. And that is new for us. And we are excited that this is also multi-year as opposed to just doing a 1-year thing. It's going to be multiple years. So 6.1.6, upcoming projects, learning and other. This week I have, there's a lot of things that are going on with the Indigenous Ed team at Wapsigigat. They've been very busy. They're doing an activity called the Secret Path program. And this was something that grew from the Gord Downey Wenjack Foundation, which many of you might recall, based on a tragedy. And Gord Downey, who was a very famous singer, his foundation is starting this. And this saw the Indigenous Ed staff were co-teaching at both PCS and Lahaine. There was also a number of activities that they've conducted in the last month with teachers and EAs on learning from the land and using the Somali language. They planted a heart garden with Ms. Cowell and Mr. Einerson's class and spoke about reconciliation and the history of Indigenous people in this territory. This week, the Indigenous Education Department will be leading learning around the Indigenous Veterans Day, which was on Monday, and they'll be doing activities at PCS and PRMS. The elder role model and fluent speaker, Mr. Ben Spencer, has been helping students learn about harvesting Quilamics, which is Labrador tea on Tsimshian territory. And I mean, I received many things from the staff on what they're doing, and if I keep listing everything, we'll be here quite a while. But wonderful things going on, and so many things in all of our schools. It's great to see. Next, I have under learning and other is practicum students. We currently have 13 Simon Fraser University students fulfilling their practicum work in our schools. We have 5 additional educational assistants doing practicums in our schools from Coast Mountain College, and 1 from a college called Sprott Shaw College down south, I believe. And so it's somebody who is living here. So that's wonderful for us. We're pleased to support these students, and we hope that they consider applying to work on our staff in the near future.
Just a vote of thanks to our local teachers for taking on the practicum students. I have one in the program, and he has just been, he's like a whole new guy. He's loving his practicum. But I know that it takes commitment on our teachers to take that on, and so my thanks.
Very good. Halloween Fest, Bev Kilbury reported to us that they had a successful Halloween fest, preparing 1,800 treat bags for our students. The Rotarians delivered the packaged treats to the elementary schools, middle school, and Annunciation. And we thank Bev and her group for all of that. Very nice. Robert Stiles Physical Literacy. So this is, Robert Stiles came here. This is a physical literacy project that he's working on. And he came and did a number of activities promoting physical activity movement in schools in BC. But he was with us for a couple of days in October. It's building capacity of BC elementary school educators to increase their confidence and competence in delivering quality physical activity and physical literacy opportunities. And he will be coming back, I believe it's in the new year, to work with our staff. Very well received. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing and how many wonderful things are happening in our district. The Secretary Treasurer's report.
All right, 7.1. I'm pleased to present to you an updated financial report. This is based on the work I've been doing with the board and with Joe Axford, a consultant we've been working with. Quite different from the reports you've seen in previous years. In particular, showing revenue and then breaking out the expenses more by the category of employees than it was previously. There are some notes provided as well just to provide clarity. So for example, some employee groups are primarily paid over 10 months, whereas others are over 12 months, and some categories are a mix, and so that's indicated. And the note at the bottom is also quite important to put September in context, where the amount of funding we get each month from the ministry is set by the ministry, and September gets less funding than all the subsequent months. And so while it shows a loss in the month of September, that's driven in most part by the lower revenue we get in that month. Any questions you may have?
I would just share that the board has also shared that they are still interested in having the report that used to come as well as a part 2 to this.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Trustee Thorne?
Cam, I'd say thanks for doing the work to put this together. It's been on your shoulders, all of this work, so thank you.
And
Oh,
Brittany.
Brittany.
Let's not forget Brittany.
Corrected from Cam.
She might be quiet, but she's doing. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Pam.
All right. The following page is the operations department report. For the month of October, any questions you may have on that? And just a note, there is a vacancy in the IT department. We don't have a report from the IT department.
So, yeah, so can I ask a question? Yes. Have we put that up for tender yet? Like
We've been interviewing candidates.
Oh, okay.
in progress.
Just curious. I just want to know if it's gonna be internally filled or externally filled, that's all.
That concludes my report.
Wonderful, thank you. On to committee reports, Finance and Building Committee. And I will turn this over to Trustee Meyer.
It's either, I mean, we were both there, but I guess. Go ahead, Christy. Take the floor, Christy.
Trustee Meyer?
Okay, well, I'm not sure about 811. I believe we had board meeting dates that we had put out for this, another date aside from the second Tuesday of every month. And I'm gonna swing it back to Trustee or to Chair Toy so that she can give the comments that came up.
And I'll swing that back to.
So the chair wrote letters to a number of partner groups. We heard back from two, one of which was fine with the move. The other group, one of the options was the fourth Tuesday, and one of the partner groups, that's their regular monthly meeting, and so they would prefer any day but the fourth Tuesday. And again, like we're now in November showing you the September results because one of our commitments is to give you sort of a final monthly statement, and it wouldn't be possible to give you October by this early in the month. So that was one of the reasons that we had suggested you might consider meeting later in the month than the second Tuesday. So that's the feedback you received from your partners.
Thank you. Trustee Meyer?
So with that being said, to me, I would rather have a financial report. Like we're in November, I would rather have one for October so that we know where we're at way closer to the time. So I don't know if I can do this, but I'd like to make a motion that we have our December meeting, the 3rd. Oh, no, we can't. It's way too close to Christmas. Never mind. It won't work for December.
We can revisit again after in the new year.
Wait, I'm looking at my calendar.
Or you could make this motion in December for 2022.
Okay. Yeah, if we can put it back on the agenda, then can we table until the December meeting?
Yes. Thank you.
For any changes in the next term. Old dog no tricks, don't change.
We'll have that in the discussion next month. It sounds like we'll have good discussion of that in December.
I like that.
And then there is the one-time funds for the 2021-2022 school year. And I believe Superintendent Smoyle is going to give us the lowdown on that. It is on page 34.
Yes.
Okay. Andrew's gonna have me start on that. Just the accounting side of this gets a little bit complicated as I go down the list for you. But you see the first 4 items all indicate that those are special purpose funds. So if you recall in the statements, you have an operating fund, then you have special purpose, and then you'll have your capital fund. Well, in this case, those first 4 items are things that will be appearing in the special purpose fund, so they won't affect your operating bottom line. And one of them, the third one down on the page, 57,000, that was actually already money we received last year that we're spending this year. And the rest is there. My only other comment financially with respect to these is on the health and safety one in the 4th line. Our projected cost for those 3 items is closer to 85,000 and not the 60 that's there. So that would be a bit of a cost pressure for us to consider as the year goes on. The 5th line down, the COVID holdback for learning impact of pandemic is the most confusing of these funds. We received those funds last year. We had the choice of trying to do something at the end of last year or doing something into this year. Made the decision that we would do it this year. So that money on the financial statements, it was actually received, but then held in reserve. So at the end of this fiscal year, when we've spent this money, we'll actually be over budget by 81,000 because the money is already in reserve. And it's effectively funded by that money that's already sitting there. And the last item is an operating grant. So this is money that will come in and be spent in the operating fund over the course of the year. In terms of the specifics of what we're spending it on, I don't know if you have any questions about what you've seen there, but we could answer those if you do.
Right, and I'll add that in the documentation that we received for these grants, there are 3 areas that they would like us to focus on with these funds. One is Indigenous students. Number 2 is children and youth in care. And number 3 is students with diverse abilities or disabilities. And so a lot of the focus when we were looking at these positions, it took us the first month we didn't fill many of these positions because we were trying to make sure that we were covering these 3 groups. So we had to make sure that we were administratively ready to administer these grants or these one-time funds. And what is different in these is that in the past, the ministry has often provided funds and you spend it. In these, they've actually asked for outcomes. What did you set out to measure, and did you measure it and then give us the results? So each of these funds have provisions, like an administrative task to it. And so we have to make sure that we are clear on the objectives for each of these grants, how they will service those groups, and then how we will report back to the ministry. And the ministry has said, if you don't spend this money, they will take it back.
So they'll claw it back?
They will claw it back if you don't spend it. So they're saying, you've told us what you're going to spend it on. You've written that out. Let's make sure that you do follow through with that. So we think that's good because we most certainly need these resources. It's very important for us to receive this money.
Any questions?
You don't need a motion to get information on it.
Thank you, Trustee Meyer. Framework for enhanced student learning. Trustee Sanchez asked that I share what we learned that day, and so I would love to share that this is a large framework, and this large framework is comprised of many partners. Not we're all able to be in attendance, but there are teachers, principals, vice principals, district principals, head office staff, EAs, DPAC, trustees, and the Indigenous Education Council are all representative of who comes together to do this work of the large framework. We looked at data and we looked at the steps, the next steps, and really comparing data of not just year by year, but really the conversation was about let's look at cohorts. So let's look at this data when we see these kids in grade 3, and then let's see these kids again when they're in grade 6 and on. And now with the data that's been collected, we're able to do those kinds of looking and seeing how kids are doing on a long term. And also that we're rolling out what will be happening is the rolling out the framework for enhanced student learning survey will be completed by the end of January 2022. And then Sandy Pond gets to gather all of that and present it again to the large framework. There is a lot of data and a lot of work goes into this. So very aware of that. Thank you. Provincial Council. Sorry, any questions for Sandy Pond or myself on that one? Wonderful, seeing none. Trustee Meyer for PC Council.
Yeah, so just the summary is on page 35. We passed a couple of motions on page 36. And I don't know if anybody has any questions on it. It was budget. It was a lot of looking at numbers. Oh, I can say that because there was no like trustee academy that was in person and our AGM was all done online, that BCSTA's budget, this was their just our draft budget, but that They had a surplus last year. So again, our fees will not increase this year. That surplus will take care of any increased fees.
Great, thank you. Indigenous Education Council, I would love to report on that. So on the 20th, we were able to meet and to have some sharing, and I'd love to share that GIGA offered a summer school this past summer that was very successful. And there's also talk about wanting to see a teacher training in the north, specific for people who, not people that already are on the path, but like teacher training cohort from the beginning to graduation of your diploma, of your degree. Metlakatla also had a summer program. They had kids from K to 8 and it was a huge success. Their K to 3 had a 95% turnout for a 7-week program, and the afternoons were 100% turnout for students. They did tons of hands-on learning. They were down at the dock. They were canning fish. They were giving to elders. There was lots of wonderful learning that was shared. The Indigenous Education team hit the ground running, were their words, and they September saw the Truth and Reconciliation Day with learning around that, as well as Orange Shirt Day. And this quote that stuck with me was that the students had profound thoughts and wonders to add to the learning around these days. And and also that I know that I do believe that the Indigenous Education Committee is taking the lead on working on the partnership for the provincial initiative, which is changing results for young children. And that is Ks and 1s, and I think it might even reach to some 2s. And I know that not Maureen, but Tammy was up working with that group as well. And then Roberta and Lucy have been invited to sit on the provincial mental health literacy panel for Indigenous youth or initiative. And they've also been asked to pilot a youth and elder talking circle. I think that is absolutely beautiful and wonderful. And also, Roberta, if you're still on and there was anything that you'd like to add that I missed, I would love for you to share. Thank you.
I think you got it all, Kate. There was talk about having an anti-racism committee for future conferences or just learning for our district and the community.
Actually, a motion was passed, and we also were talking about how well received the anti-racism day was, conference in maybe June, maybe May, June. Yeah, thank you so much, Roberta. Policy Committee, Trustee Beal.
So the committee met last week and we discussed policies for release. So we have policy 8.15.2.1, physical restraint and seclusion policy, where we didn't receive any comments back from our stakeholders. So I make a motion that we approve that.
Seconded, Trustee Horn. Would you like to speak to that?
No, it's a part of the package.
Great.
So
shall we all in favor? All in favor?
I'm getting that.
Thanks. Move.
Policy 1410, Code of Conduct and Anti-Racism Policy, coming in right after Bert. I'd like to make a motion. Again, we didn't receive any negative or any feedback on that. I'd make a motion that that be approved.
Seconded, Trustee Horn. Would you like to speak to that motion?
No, that's fine.
All in favor? Approved. Thanks.
The next two policies are we discussed this at great lengths at the policy committee, because these policies aren't going out to stakeholders, because these are policies held within the board's purview. I think that it's quite clear under the School Act that the board directs the superintendent. So I'd like to make a motion, and they've been vetted. I vetted them a few minutes ago, make sure the changes that we asked for were made. 6310 road superintendent policy, I think a motion that be approved.
Seconded, Trustee Last. Would you like to speak to that?
No, I shared that we did that those ones.
Thank you. All in favor? Great, approved.
And the last one, 6315, delegation to the superintendent policy. Again, I reviewed the changes that we asked and they were there. Make a motion that be approved.
Seconded, trustee Lass. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Is there language in the policy so that we don't have to discuss this in the future, that they are labeled internal policies and just for the board?
Oh, Cam may want to speak on that.
So I think the intent is there are certain policies which are the board's work. Now, the board would still want to approve those policies and they would come to public.
Mhm.
I haven't had a chance yet to kind of look down the entire list and kind of say which ones I think would be in which category.
Right.
But for ones that are just, strictly the board's work, the board will approve. And the recommendation of the committee is those wouldn't go out for comment. The ones that are like about students or employees in other ways and stuff would
Yeah.
more likely go out for comment to the board.
I'm just thinking ahead a little bit to a new board not that far away, that, if there was some specification within these two embedded that they are internal policies for the board.
We did.
That's in there?
Okay, we did. What we've done is we're going to revisit that, and I think the next policy meeting, maybe we will have a framework on internal policies versus external policies.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you need policy,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be for anybody other than the board
Exactly.
to set parameters and language in there.
And I'd love to share as well, we did talk about succession planning. And so talking about language that would be beneficial to people that weren't necessarily at that table when those decisions were being made.
Yeah. Good.
All right.
Thank you.
8.5.3, policy for review, none. And 8.5.4, other, lowering of flags.
I can speak to that first if you'd like. So historically, whenever our flags were lowered and when they were raised was generally directed provincially. Recently, there's been communication, and this really arose when the flags were first lowered, when the 215 graves were found in Kamloops, that the ministry was giving districts that latitude to determine when they went back up. And we don't specifically have a policy in place in our own district in that regard. So we just want to kind of highlight that that's an issue that we've become more aware of, and we will do some work on that and bring something back to the policy committee, to the board.
Thank you. And Mr. Summer, would you like to speak of the lowering of the flags?
Yeah, I'll just add, Chair, that we had received the notification from the ministry by way of a bulletin that said that it was up to, this was just last Friday. And so, with the board's approval, I ordered that the flags be lowered at sunrise on Monday, because that was Indigenous Veterans Day. And then they will continue to be at half-mast until Friday at sundown, in honor of, obviously, Remembrance Day on the 11th. But the activities in our schools are continuing throughout the week. Every school is doing something on Remembrance Day, which is, they'll be doing these activities tomorrow, because Friday our schools are closed. Thursday.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, team.
Yeah, and thank you so much for doing that.
Very good.
District Technology Steering Committee, Trustee Coombs.
You'll see the meeting notes in the package. If anybody's got any questions, otherwise it was a informative meeting and stuff like that. So each person spoke and have the notes there if anybody wants to ask any questions.
Not seeing any, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And old business, 9.1, BCSTA. Memorandum of.
Just for your information, Andrew and I were in attendance at the joint liaison meeting and just included some notes for you on the topics that were raised in that discussion for the board as a whole to be aware of.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions on that at this time? Thank you, not seeing any. 9.2, forensic audit. Okay. Should I speak to this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great, wonderful. So this is just added to the agenda as the board decided, I believe in June. There was talk of a forensic audit, and since that time there has been, we've gone and looked at outside support as to what exactly we're looking for, and after the board has been able to meet with people for advice and support and to see what we really want, I believe that what the board is actually looking for is more of an internal audit and to be looking at our terms of reference. So I would just open it up for discussion of the board. Trustee Last?
I'd like to make a motion that the board proceed with the internal audit process, please.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Thanks. Trustee Beal, would you like to speak to that?
No, just to echo what you said, really, is we did access outside expertise to see what, we say forensic audit. Well, once you get to the nitty gritty of what that actually is and what it would provide, for the questions that we had, an internal audit really did meet our needs better. And it certainly is a different process and one that we feel will be beneficial to the district.
Thank you. Trustee Koontz and then Trustee Meyer.
What was said well there, what we're looking at and what our needs will fit to find out the information and be able to move forward in a more positive direction and try some new things. I think we're doing the right thing, moving forward in this way.
Thank you. Trustee Meyer?
Yeah, I completely agree. I am wondering if we should add to the motion to use KPMG as our internal audit people.
I have that amendment. Thank you, Christy. Yep.
And just to speak on that, they are the people that do our annual audit. We used them for the first time this year. They're a great company, and having them do it, they will just know us better, and it will make our yearly audit that much better. And I think it's just a great idea to use them as per discussions.
Thank you. Trustee Horn?
Thank you, Chair. Is there a cost change from what we had, because we made a motion previously for cost, is there a difference in cost to this motion?
I actually, we discussed this too, and I think were you away when we discussed this?
Yeah.
Anyway, like we discussed like forensic audits versus an internal audit more than once in different venues. If we look at a forensic audit versus the internal audit, we would probably have to cap it at a minimum 35,000 to get what we're really looking for. And I think that is why we're doing an internal audit, because as we all recognize, last year we went into an unknown territory with our finances. So I think that in light of the $14,000, we're not going to get anything as a forensic audit for $14,000. However, for $14,000, an internal audit is not, they're not just trying to dig here, there, and everywhere. There's going to be specific things they're going to look at to see how moving forward, the board can be more part of the finances that we sort of lacked in future, or I mean past years. So I have no intentions of recommending more than $14,000. That was our cap, and I think we should stick to that cap.
Thank you.
Trustee Meyer?
I think the original motion did say that we would pay up to, I think it was 15, but maybe it was 14. So with that going, it would still be the same. We would only pay up to that amount and then decide further after that.
So is that the motion? We're keeping the amount the same and then we will see what.
I think the motion wasn't anything to do with the finance.
Okay.
part. I
Yeah,
think it's that we're,
my motion was just to proceed with an internal opposed to forensic, and then with thanks of trustee Meyer to include the agency or the company that will do it for us. Yeah,
You
no,
seconded, can you just confirm you're willing to make that change to the motion too?
did I second that?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay, I'm
seconded
willing
my
to, yes,
motion.
of course, I'm willing to do that.
Just,
Thank
Okay,
you. Thank you.
thanks. Yeah, no problem.
All in favor? Passed. Thank you. New business?
none.
And so information items, I would love to acknowledge yesterday was National Aboriginal Veterans Day, November 8th. Remembrance Day as a statutory holiday is this Thursday, November 11th. I would love to just bring awareness to what families and communities and people that have served must have experienced. And just to offer my gratitude to everybody that has gone on to fight for what we are able to enjoy now. Non-instructional day is November 26th. BCSTA Trustee Academy is December 2nd to the 4th. Our board meeting is December 14th, and already winter break is on our schedule, December 20th to the 31st of 2021. Want to thank you all for joining us tonight, and could I have an motion for adjournment? Trustee Lass, Trustee Horn, all in favor? Approved? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening.